still talking about the concepts of creation. Did God really do what He said He did? And when I started this, I didn't think this was such a big deal. I just thought, okay, well, it's going to be a gee whiz little sermon series. Here's some interesting things. Here's this. I really didn't understand what God was trying to tell me when I started. I'm usually fairly obedient. I've learned after all these years, it's just not worth fighting with God. If this is what He wants to do, then let's just do it. I'll be happier in the long run, even if I don't want to do it now. I just will. But the more I've gotten into this is the crux of who we are. This is the essence. Now, again, you're saying, what's creation and evolution have to do with the crux of who we are? What do we truly believe? Do we believe God did what He said He did? The more I go through this, the more I'm saying I have to. Is this thing true or not? And each one of you have to determine that for your own selves. You have to. I know where I've come down, and I've had to wrestle with it too many times. I know that God has done what He said He's going to do, and therefore I'm going to believe it. I know I'm content. No matter what you say to me, no matter what proof you bring to me tomorrow, and understand I've had some of you discussing this with me, which is a good thing. Bring it to me. I'm not a physicist. I'm the first to say that. I am not a cosmologist. I don't study the atmosphere or the universe around us. I don't. I'm just one of those people who will do a little bit of research to help us all kind of move along down the problem. And so bring it to me. I love it when people discuss things. You've got nothing to hide. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to fight with you. Now, again, sometimes I may be quick because I've got to get to something else. But for the most part, I'll talk with you as long as I've got time. If someone comes in my office, you can guarantee everything stops. We're going to talk about it. But this is a bigger picture than just what is the age of the earth. This really is about, do you believe this thing? When Moses wrote this in 1900 BC or so, was he telling the truth? Or, was he making up a lie? Is this not actually true? Moses could have been lying from the beginning. Now, again, that would be a hard one because we've got one of the pinnacles of God's belief system that we're dealing with. So I'd have trouble saying that Moses was lying. We believe that this was inspired by God to the people. It wasn't necessarily him saying, okay, write this word down, they write it. They write this word down, write it. He told them what to say, and they said it in the way that they were accustomed to saying it. So they're all going to have a little bit different flavor and that kind of a thing. But did God say lies about Himself? Hey, Moses, have them say this about me. It's going to sound great. I think, the world's really 13.7 billion years old, but tell them I did it in 6 days. This will be cool. We'll see what kind of fights they get into in the 21st century. You think He really did that? Again, He's a weak God if He does that to me. There are plenty of instances where the secular gods, the Greek gods and the Roman gods would do those kind of things. They'd lie to the people. I don't think my God did. And so this is a pinnacle of who we are. You're having to wrestle and understand, I understand you're dealing with your worldview. It's a huge deal. I'm not just talking about creation. I'm not talking about evolution. I'm dealing with something you may have believed to be true all of your life. And all of a sudden I'm saying it may not look like that. That's a huge deal. And all it does is tend to make people frustrated. They're going to come in angry. Well, but this. Well, we're going to deal with some facts. I don't care. I'm sorry. I love your emotion. And as a pastor and as a minister, I've had to deal with tradition in church for a very long time. I don't care about your tradition. I really don't. I don't care about my tradition. I really only care about what God says. You got a really boring engineer when you hired me. Everything is black and white. It's either here or it's not. And if it's not, then we'll talk about it out in the parking lot. If you want to talk about motorcycles with me, we'll have all day long. But when it comes to God's church, this is all I care about, right here. Therefore, I'm a little bit emphatic with it. I feel like, and I'm not a Muslim, but I'm defending my God at this point. This is the Crusades for me. Okay? Understand that I love the zeal of our Muslim friends. I wish they could focus it in a different way. But if we had a tenth of their zeal to determine that the world hear our story the way that they're trying to get their story out. Now, they're going about it all wrong. Can you imagine what the world would look like? We just sit back and let the world revolve around us, and we don't want to be hurt. Please just don't encroach on me today, so I have to actually say something. We must stand up. So this is the Crusades for me. This is as big as it gets. I didn't think it was this way when we started. But now I'm defending my God to the death. Okay? I'm bringing out everything I can find to say, that God, my God, He did what He said He did. So this is where we are. I'm messing with your worldview. I understand that. I'm trying to get you back to what truth is. Okay, science is great. I am a scientist. I have an engineering degree. But truth is truth, and science is science. They should come together if we don't presuppose on it things that aren't there. So again, we're talking about this. Our overall text for this talk is in Colossians, because I can't think of anything better to say, or God would have said it any clearer than Paul said to the church at Colossia. So I want you to say this, chapter 1, verse 16. Say it with me. For everything was created by Him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through Him and for Him. Do you believe that? And if you don't, I've still got time. I've got time to get you there. God's not in a rush. If God's going to draw you to Himself, it will happen. I just have to be patient and do my best. So we're going to start working this thing. Again, we've spoken of a lot of different theories here, and I've got another week. I'm going to deal with the concepts and some of the interesting information of Darwinian theory in 2 weeks. Okay? Next week we'll deal with day 5. Then we'll deal with day 6. And when we start dealing with man, I'll start talking about Darwin and some of the theories of evolution. But here's my big thing. If I can prove, or at least throw enough wrenches in, the cogs of the concept that the world is 13.7 billion years. If I can just throw a few wrenches in that, evolution is impossible from the beginning. It takes them billions of years for this thing to occur. So if I can halfway get you to think that maybe the Earth's not that old, Darwinian theory is easy. Because they need billion years for enough cells to divide enough right ways to make this thing happen. Okay? So we've talked about a lot of these theories. We've spoken of Einstein's theory of relativity. We've dealt with ice levels. We've talked about the age of water, soft tissue and fossils, recession of the moon, decaying magnetic field. Now again, at this point, they're the ones throwing the numbers out and they have to defend it. I don't. I'm on the one throwing the cogs in there. Okay, I'm batting it back at them. You said this, deal with this. Okay? When you come to me, I understand you're going to say 13.7 billion, 13.7 billion. Well, then deal with the Earth's decaying magnetic field. Deal with it. You prove that to me. There are enough things to at least say, this may not be that way. Okay? That's all I want to get you to. If I can get you to at least halfway say, maybe they haven't worked it all out, then at that point you have to wrestle with God. Because there's no way it would have happened any other way. That's where I'm trying to go. So we've dealt with these things. Yet, when we talk about all these things, they tend to not wrestle with it. Now understand, you can look up every one of these and they will give you some type of refutation to it. They will. But usually they end up discovering things that they can't prove. Okay? Every one of these things I've found out, they end up making up something, or they'll say, well, it started at this point. Or this, all of a sudden, it started to occur because of this event. An event we can't prove, a theory that they have no basis for, a theory there's really no science, it's just a great assumption. So understand that there will be, I could have spent twice as much time telling you the other side. You can look those up. But for the most part, they're making up things, or at least saying, well, the sediment in the ocean started at this event because of this. Well, they have no proof of that. It's just a great assumption. We can't prove any of these things. No one was around 13.7 billion years ago to write down, okay, there the Earth started spinning, here's where the moon is. We don't have that. Everything is a backward assumption from there on out. But let me tell you where they calculate that number. Okay, I've been throwing that number out for about 3 weeks. Let me tell you where they get it. The WMAP, I don't know if they call it the WMAP. It's the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe. Okay? The U.S. has a probe up in space, and it's looking at what they call the CMB, the Cosmic Microwave Background. Okay? There is a microwave background to the universe. And again, some of you may be much more able to explain this than I do. But at this point, you don't need to understand the cosmic microwave background for me to get to the end where I'm going. Okay? They look at this microwave, this satellites in space. They first found this microwave background in 1965. And that's where the Big Bang Theory really got its rooting. At that point, they finally found the number they were looking for. Found enough calculations. We got this data. This data gives us a number that at least helps get us in the right range of age for evolution to have occurred. Everything comes back to Darwin. Darwin started all this, and they've been trying to prove Darwin from the beginning. We need billions of years for Darwin to be right. So let's keep finding numbers out there that will give us something that we can calculate to give us billions of years. This theory, the CMB, it deals with the inflation theory that when the the Earth initially started to expand, that there was a lot of cosmic microwave background at that point. The inflation theory underwent a very quick expansion, which therefore supports the Big Bang. They see tiny fluctuations within this field, and they believe that these tiny fluctuations of the CMB cause stars and universes and galaxies. Now again, we only live 100 years. We've only had the technology for 70 or 80. Yet they say that they can prove that our universes and galaxies come from this CMB. Again, it'd be nice to see one created at some point. But that's me as a scientist, not a cosmologist. Again, the other proof comes from not the WMAP, but what they call the Planck satellite. The Europeans have their own satellite, and they find the same thing. But what's interesting is when the Planck satellite discovered its data, they found the data to be non-homogeneous, meaning it's not even throughout the universe. Now, up until this point, from 1965, everything was homogeneous. Therefore, the universe was expanding at an even rate. The minute the data came in from the Planck satellite, they changed all their theories to make it work with reference to the data that was coming in. Every time something comes in that changes it, they will adjust their scientific equations and their assumptions. Now listen to this. Listen to this. I got this off the main website talking about the Planck satellite. Now listen to this theory. Calculating the age of the universe is accurate only if the assumptions built into the models being used to estimate it are also accurate. Who would not say that's true? If I assume that this carpet's green, I'm going to do everything I can to make it green. Everything. Brown will now become green. The angstroms that are the color wavelength of brown, I will reinvent them to now be green. I can make anything follow into my assumptions if I work hard enough. Listen to the last half of this. Now, they don't call them assumptions. That's too big for them. They call them strong priors. And again, that's a nice scientific word for assumptions. They're strong priors. Now listen to what they say. Essentially, what they will do is they will strip the potential errors in parts of their model to render the accuracy of actual observational data directly into the concluded result. So if anything comes out of this equation they don't like, they remove it. I wish I could do that with life. That would sure make my life easier if I could remove everything I don't like about it. Now, as an engineer, understand when there was data off the graph, I've got this beautiful plot line like this. There's a point once in a while way off of it. We would know that the equation, that somehow we goofed the scientific experiment. Something was wrong in there because everything else came out on the line, and I got a point way up here. My hands must have touched it or something, or the temperature was off. Okay? I can remove data, but I can't affect the equation. These are the kind of things that we're wrestling with. Just as soon as they don't like the information they're receiving, they change it. They're going to get the strong priors or the assumptions they're looking for every time. So let's get into it a little bit. Genesis, open up there. Genesis 1 is where we're going to be. Written by Moses. It ended about 300 years before Moses was even alive. And this book covers more time than the rest of the Bible combined. It talks about the beginning. Do we believe it to be true? That's where we are this morning. Do we believe it to be true? We're in Genesis 1, verses 14 through 19, day 4. And I want you to stand with me as we honor God's Word. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night. They will serve as signs for festivals and for days and years. There will be lights in the expanse of the sky to provide light in the earth." And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to have dominion over the day, and the lesser light to have dominion over the night, as well as the stars. God placed in the expanse of the sky to provide light on the earth, to dominate the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. God saw that it was good. Evening came, and then morning, the fourth day. Let's pray. Dear Lord, you're mighty, and I thank you for this time this morning. Lord, let us understand you better. Let us truly believe that when you say something that you will do it and that you do things as you said. God, you're mighty. We say this in your name. Amen. Please be seated. A little bit of backstory. We all have what we call a circadian rhythm. Now, again, I am a scientist. I love thinking about things. I love patterns. I love trends. I like to see trends when I'm looking at things. And the circadian rhythm has been determined in plants and animals and fungi, even cyanobacteria, whatever that is. They found that it's regulated by the day. The sun regulates much of our life. From the beginning, God has destined that we have a time to work and a time to rest. He wants that. John 9:4. We must do the works of Him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. We have a time that we do our best. There are times in the day when we work even harder. And I think if you know yourself, you know there's a time I need to go to the gym and there's just a time I'm not going to be good. There for a while when I was young, I went to the gym in college time. I went there like 6 in the morning. I am not a morning person. If it's dark outside, I don't think God's awake. And I'm really worried that I'm going to make it through the day. Okay? At least that's how I resolve it. Okay? But it's that kind of thing. I was never good. I was just weak in the morning. My wife's actually stronger than me in the morning. But we find that we have our deepest sleep at 2 a.m. We're most high alert at 10 a.m. Best coordination at 2:30. So if you want to walk on a balance beam, that's when you do it. 3:30 is our fastest reaction time. If you got to catch chickens or something like that, 3:30 is your best time to do that. If you want to go lift boulders and dig up tree stumps, 5 o'clock's your time. Okay? If you work with this cycle, you'll be physically ahead. You'll be able to do more than you normally could. And I think God has designed us with the day and the night to ensure. And again, I know that people have worked third shift. They say it's really difficult to get even 6 hours of sleep because you just are you're sleeping during the day. Some of you know how this is. God's designed us to be asleep when it's dark. Okay, these are the kind of things He does. So today we're going to see how God created the sun and offers man scheduled life. So the first thing I want you to know is that God made the day. He did. God made the day. Verse 14. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night. They will serve as signs for festivals and for days and for years." God knew man could live in the dark. Remember, He's preparing planet for us. He's not preparing it for the dart or something in California. He's not preparing it for some snail in some dry riverbed that we can no longer use our land around it. He prepared the world for man. Now, we are to do our best with the world He's given us. At all points, we are to do our best and protect it and take care of it because it's a beautiful thing that He's given us. But it is for man. And He designed it for us. And He knew that we need light. He's preparing us. He already knows how He's going to design us, and He's preparing a habitable planet for us. Then God said, once again, He has said this. This is the 4th time God's been very clear. God did this and no one else did. Again, we've talked about the other gods that would have been around the children of Israel at this point, and how that many of them believed that God was equal and had mass around Him that He used to create the world. We know that God created everything that we have. The invisible and the visible. All the things that are around us, God made at one point or another. And the writer's being specifically clear. Because He's not just writing this to His own people. His own people would have known this. He's writing this to us. He's writing this to the nations around. For thousands of years later, these people need to hear this story because they will get off track. Where are we today? We're so off track believing God did anything. Okay, we can answer so many things in our world with the science that we have around us. So at that point, we get complacent and thinking we're much bigger in the realm and the scheme of the universe. God did these things and only He did these things. And He said, "Let there be lights." Now this is different than "let there be light." He didn't create light at this point. He's creating the lights in the universe. So you have to understand the difference. Verse 3, then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Up to this point, there was no moon, there's no sun, there are no stars, there are no other planets to reflect light. In verse 3, God made light itself, something that was not. He created. He didn't need a sun or a fire or planets to reflect it. He made it. How do we have light today? The only way we have light is because the sun's up there. Or we have light bulbs in our house. Or we can see the moon at night. Or out here because it's so beautiful and we're so high we can see all the stars. I've never been in another part of the country where I can see the stars like I can here. It's just beautiful. I mean, God's given us that kind of beauty. But initially, from the beginning, God created light. It's like He turned on a light in nothingness. All of a sudden, there was. We don't need the sun. He didn't need these entities to reflect it. He just let there be light. At this point, He's making things that emanate light for us. He's created the concept of light. We can see how bright and beautiful it is outside. He's created that concept, given us that light. Now, He's going to give us something that helps to regulate the life that we live. Again, in verse 3, he simply created light, which means it wasn't before. Now he's making something that will give it and reflect it. We must have light. How do we grow crops without checking on our plants? How do we hunt animals without being able to see them? Again, we understand these things. These are not simple. How do we build a home without being able to find the necessary tools? Have you ever wandered out, guys, out in the garage in the dark and you've been too lazy to look for the light switch? I know where this thing is. And then you're stubbing your toes because you don't put on shoes. How many of you have been there, guys? You know what it is. We're lazy. The quickest way to get in and out. Now, I got a hand. He's at least honest being there with me. But we come in all bloody from looking for a screwdriver, because we don't want to turn on the light. We must have these things, let alone some of us who may have issues with seeing right now. I know some of our sweet people in this room, their eyes are a little diminished. How difficult does life get? We need light. We must be able to see. God knew all of this, and He's preparing for our needs. This is the kind of God that we serve. He's going to separate day from the night. Romans 13:12. The night is nearly over and the daylight is near, so let us discard the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. We see all the beautiful imagery of light in the Bible. Light is always good. Light's never bad in the Bible. Dark is bad. Dark is where things hide. Again, we walk into our house. Sometimes you ever got that shiver down your back? Whoa, what's going on in here? Probably just nervousness, but you don't know what's behind the corner. You've got the lights out. You're trying to get to that first wall. You forgot to leave the light on when you left. We know what that's like. We're insecure in the dark. Again, Psalm 119, 105, your word is a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. Why would God throw that out to the psalm writer if it weren't true? This thing can guide us in a dark world. This beautiful book right here. It can guide us in a world that is so dark, that's doing all it can to take us away. And again, today it may be simply, the world's old. Okay? That the Bible says 6 days, but it's old. So you can still believe you're God, but it's just old. Just somehow He messed it up. The word aleph or the word yom in the Hebrew, they meant something different 4,000 years ago. Just deal with it. Tomorrow now we're believing that we all came from single cells. Next we're believing we came from apes. At that point life has no meaning because it created out of randomness. It had no purpose in the beginning. It has no purpose now. That's where I'm going to end this. Brandon set it off. I thought I was just going to quickly end it. I'm going to go in the end of this, when we finally finish this topic, I'm going to deal with what a life looks like when it has no purpose. When we have no purpose, we tend to do terrible things to each other. Doesn't matter. It's just a whole bunch of cells that randomly work themselves together. If there was no purpose in their creation, there would be no purpose if I take them out. We need to understand the importance of what God has done here. Matthew 4:16, the people who live in darkness have seen a great light. He's talking about those who have not seen Christ. Christ has now come. And for those living in the shadowland of death, light has dawned. Christ is the image of light here. Again, look at 1 John 1:7. But if we walk in the light as He Himself is light. Light is everything to us. We must have it. Again, if you've been in parts of Alaska, I know, Ruth, where are you? Yeah. You've been there like when many months of it's dark. Is that difficult? Take a little bit of time to get used to? But it's a little tough. 2 months of dark. Again, can you imagine it? You just don't know when night is. Again, we got a lot of people up there, a lot of great Americans up there. But it's difficult. You have to learn to adapt to it. Light's a powerful symbol God's going to use for Himself. And He must prepare it for man. As we discussed day 4, I'm wanting to remind you that the concept of days is possible. As I've told you from the beginning, I cannot prove 6 days. I can't. Einstein gets close. Go back and listen to that first sermon. Einstein gets close. But if I can get you off of millions and billions of years, then evolution is not possible. If I can get you to the concept of a young earth. So listen to this. Have you ever heard of the faint sun paradox? And it's not Christians, it's not creationists who call it a paradox. It's those who are cosmologists and evolutionists that call it a paradox. Please show this video real quickly.
Let's assume for a moment that the evolutionary explanation for the origin of the Earth and the Sun is correct. The Sun formed about 4.6 billion years ago. Let's imagine that evolutionists are right in saying that life originated on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago. This scenario creates many scientific problems, but today we want to focus on one problem that is seldom mentioned. One implication of these assumptions is that the Sun today is about 40% brighter than it was 4.5 billion years ago. This means that 3.5 billion years ago, the Sun was bathing the Earth in considerable less energy than we receive today. Under those conditions, life as we know it today could not have existed. Yet, we are told that it was under these very conditions that life supposedly evolved. Evolutionists are aware of this problem. In an attempt to solve it, they theorize that the early Earth had more greenhouse gases, which would have held the Sun's heat more efficiently and produced the same temperature range that life enjoys today. They then theorize that the mix of these gases gradually changed to the atmosphere we have today at the same rate that the Sun was sending more energy to Earth. This explanation is so unlikely that one scientific paper actually referred to it as the Goldilocks syndrome. There is a much less fantastic solution to this problem. The Earth and the Sun are not billions of years old, and life was created relatively recently to live under the conditions we enjoy today.
To purchase a copy.
Again, this is what you hear. We know that the Sun's core is made of hydrogen. And when you fuse it, and we can do this in the lab, you fuse hydrogen atoms together, they become helium. Helium is a hotter element. Okay? So if the Sun's been doing this for billions of years, it would be getting hotter. And we can calculate, since we've been able to have the ability to calculate the heat of the Sun, we can see that it has gotten a little warmer since we've been calculating it. Just a little bit, just enough that we can actually see a number change. But you reverse this, again, which is normal logical thinking. If you turn this thing backwards, the Sun should be getting cooler because less hydrogen has turned into helium. It makes logical sense. Now, again, they're always going to have some refutation to this. They're going to do this. But if we reverse this back, again, to 3.5 billion years ago, when we were supposed to have had enough electricity in the goo of the Earth that a few cells actually turned into something that had some amino acids and then created life. The Earth at that point was below freezing. All the water would have been frozen on the Earth. How do you create life when the Earth is frozen? You don't. Again, but they don't want to deal with this. They just call it a paradox. Okay, but it's still 13.7 billion years old, and the Sun is what it is. It's just a paradox. At some point, 1,000 years from now, we'll be able to resolve. Just understand and trust us, and we'll tell you that it's 13.7 billion years old. Again, I'm not that smart, but I at least want to look at the data and say the data should reveal what the data reveals. Don't tell me to trust something if you've got, I've got 9 problems in front of you. I haven't even tried, and I'm not trying that hard. I'm not getting into deep physics. These are simple things that other people have found out. Scientists. I can show you a list of 600 scientists with PhDs from very well-renowned universities around the world that say this cannot occur. Please at least deal with the science as it is. So can a cooler sun that cools the Earth, allows the Earth to be cooler, can life come from that? I don't think so. But I wasn't here 3.5 billion years ago to measure it. All I can do is extrapolate backwards from hard data. Okay? That's what a scientist should do. Let the data reveal itself. So we see that God made the day. God desires, worships the second thing. Look at verse 14. Then God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night. They will serve as signs for festivals and for days and for years. Festivals, days, and years. God's people should be celebrating all the time. If you're a Jewish person, there's a party every other month. They've got something big going on to remember a great God. They've got Purim, which is the deliverance from Haman in the time of Esther. Esther's a great book. Read that one. Again, that's what Purim's all about. They got Passover, the deliverance from slavery in Egypt. Rosh Hashanah, the new year. What a time it is. Yom Kippur, their highest day of atonement. Highest day of the year, their holiest day. Again, thanking God for the way that He provides. Hanukkah, the rededication of the temple as the Greeks are removed. Again, you see, all of these are a celebration for God protecting His people in times of distress. God has blessed His people, therefore they have celebrations, and God wants that. From the beginning, God wanted His people to celebrate Him. And we're all too passive, sitting back, just not doing anything with reference to Him. Can't even clap on a Sunday morning or smile. I've got to just do whatever I want to do. Don't want anybody to feel sad. I mean, this is the kind of people that God wants His people to follow Him this way. And yet we are so passive. We don't even celebrate the big days well. You know, we just can't even enjoy those. That was the whole concept of December. How can we at least enjoy Christmas more? How can we celebrate a little bigger so the world sees it? Again, God wants His people to thank Him. Every day should be a celebration. He put lights in the sky. He put stars in the night so that we can know when this happened and write it down. Be able to look back. Okay, 1 year from now, the stars are back at the same point. We've got to celebrate this. Remember what God did last year, 5 years ago, 2,000 years ago. If He did it then, He will do it today. This is the kind of God we serve, and this is what He wants out of us. He wants us to enjoy, and He wants us to remember all the things that He has done. Do you do that? Do you actually journal those things that God does in your life? And you don't have to write eloquently like Shakespeare. Just a line. God solved my problem today. Here's a date. That way, the next time you get into an issue, you can look over this huge list of things that God has done and say, you know what? He got me through all these. Remember, this thing was even bigger than the thing I'm in now. If He can do that, maybe He can do this thing in front of me. This is what God wants us to do. We need to write down when He moves. When you go through trials, put those on a paper and then put a date next to Him when He solves it. Well, you have a time of celebration. You look back every year. September 7th, God did this thing 4 years ago. Remember when He did this 10 years ago? I'm going to celebrate it every year. He put lights in the expanse. Look at verse 15. They will be lights in the expanse of the sky to provide light on earth, and it was so. The stars offer light at night so that we can see. It helps us to coordinate life. Again, for thousands of years, people have been traveling the ocean just simply by the stars. God allows us to explore this beautiful world and explore the universe around us. Again, none of that's evolutionary. Just to be able to think of something new, to invent something, how does that help me be a survivaling of the fittest? You know, I ought to be just building my muscles up so I can beat that person down next to me. That's survival of the fittest. Instead, I'm sitting here trying to discover why this comet comes back every 76 years. That doesn't make any sense. We have so much purpose and so much life. Again, some of the lights we do see in the sky are comets. There are too many comets out there. Did you know that? Too many. Watch this.
Hi, this is Joseph Tan here from AnswersAcademy.info. According to evolutionary theory, comets are supposed to be of the same age as the solar system. That is about 5 billion years old. But if we consider the composition of the comet, it reveals a much younger age actually. That's because comets are like chunks of dirty snowball, and every time a comet orbits around the sun, it loses so much of its material that it could not survive much longer than 10,000 years. So the very fact that we can still see comets today is indicative of a much younger universe. Well, as you would have guessed it, there is an explanation by the evolutionists to describe this discrepancy. This is explained away by the presence of what is called the Oort cloud. Now, what is the Oort cloud? Well, this Oort cloud is postulated to be well beyond Pluto, where there is supposedly a collection of comets waiting to be spewed out into the solar system to replace those who have been, whisked away or melted away due to the orbit around the sun. Here's the main fallacy about the Oort cloud. It has never been observed, meaning that this is just a theory or a postulation, that's all. So from a clear observational science perspective, the presence of comets is supportive of a younger universe. And that fits in very well with the biblical timeline of the age of the earth and its universe. To trust in the presence of an Oort cloud really requires a little bit more faith.
You see what they do. And again, why can't we get back to observational science?
This is Joseph.
We see it, we look at it, we calculate it, we do our best to project it out, but we don't make up things we can't see. I can make up things just as good as an Oort cloud, and I can probably make up 20. Give me about 4 minutes. I'll come up with some doozies of where these comets came from. Again, but I'm not trying to be foolish about this. This ought to be serious. I have seen with my own bare eyes 3 comets in my lifetime. I remember Halley's when it came by. Anybody remember Hale-Bopp? That was a great one. Hanging out there in space for like 4 months. Every night it was a little about an inch farther over. That was the best thing ever. Now we know that thing falling behind the comet is its own stuff being melted and burned off. So it makes sense that every time it revolves around the sun, it's going to burn a little bit more off. They aren't going to last forever. And as you saw there, 10,000 years is as far as they go. If we do our best calculation, seeing what they're losing year after year, this is not hard to figure out. Yet they continue to make up whatever it is to get the answer said. Okay, because it's 13.7 billion years, there's got to be some cloud out there just throwing them back in. Okay, this universe hasn't got enough, let's throw some over here. That universe is low, let's do some over here. Again, it comes down to this simple thing, who made the Oort cloud? If this is it, again, all we're going to do is reverse everything back one level of separation. If we can't say that God made the universe, then who made the Oort cloud? Who did that? Who's making this beautiful thing that's making beautiful, soft comets to send them right back in when we don't have enough to see in our universe? Think a little bit. Don't just tell me 13.7 billion. Prove it with observational science. Because that I can at least say, that does make sense. Okay, that's true. So we see verse 16 here, finally. Moving on. God made the 2 great lights, the greater to have dominion over the day, and the lesser to have dominion over the lights too. He made us a sun, and He made us a moon. These are the 2 greater lights. This is not creating light. These are creating beautiful things that help us regulate our day. This is what God does. So we see that God made the day. God desires worship, and finally God placed the stars. Verse 17. God placed them in the expanse of the sky to provide light on earth. God placed them. Moses, if we give him credit for writing this, was very clear that God did this and no one else. And again, I have really no trouble, let me understand as a scientist, if God chose to start the universe with a singularity, I'm fine with that. Now the issue of the Big Bang is real problems after that. If you as a Christian follow the Big Bang out the way it says, now if He wanted to just start it right here and let it release, good. I don't have any issue with that. But when we get out beyond the initial starting, we've got problems as Christians, because then we start putting in American contemporary philosophy into the Bible. Again, it says God placed these stars. He didn't just let them go. Boom, get away from that thing. What's going to happen? This will be good. Let's see where they all end up. No, God placed them. That's what it says. Either you believe it or you don't. Again, the word yatan is the word to place, and it means to allow to exist. God did this. Specifically, He created this thing. Not just, oh. That'd been cool to see. I have no trouble if God says, I'll just make all the matter, boom, right there. But then He's going to see how He's going to place it. I'm going to give them a few planets in their solar system so that they can discover them. This will be great. Watch how they look at these things, and maybe they'll see me in them. They'll see the beauty of the universe. They'll see the way it works like a Swiss clock, even better. It's more calculated than that. They'll see all the way that it works perfectly and it's put together. Verse 18, to dominate the day and the night, to separate light from darkness, and God saw that it was good. To dominate the day here, this word here is mashal in the Hebrew. It means to have dominion over, kind of like a king would. They're going to rule the universe. While we're down here, they're going to bathe us in their beauty. Again, you see a king, you look at this. These luminaries are to have the most prominent place in the sky. If you were a king in this period of time, you would have been at the highest place where everyone could see you all the time. No matter what, you're going to see the king. There's no disguising him. He's the most decorated one around. You can't miss him. Again, the sun's impossible to look at, much like a king would have been at that time. He's resplendent in his beauty. If he's a tyrant king, you wouldn't want to look at him. Stay away. That kind of a thing we see with the sun. The moon is the preeminent vision at night. It's always watching over us, like a king would be watching his kingdom. You see the beautiful imagery that's put in here, and he saw that it was good. Once again, this isn't just happenstance. Didn't just happen. Okay, it's good. It's all right. It is good. God is pleased. This is exactly the way He chose it to be. No other way would be perfect. I've made it the way I want it, and there is no other way. This is what it is. And this is what God does day after day in our lives. If He can place the stars, then I think He can work in our lives. I think He can do amazing things around us. I think He can simply solve that financial issue you've got, or deal with that health problem you're fighting through. Maybe He can bring your kids back to you, or be able to resolve how you're going to spend time with your parents, or whatever you're going through. How am I going to make it another day with the loss that I've gone through? If God can place the stars, I think He can work in the simple things of our world. I like a big God, and I serve a big God. I expect Him to be big, because I don't need a small God. If God is small, I don't need Him. I just don't. Let's be honest. I can work the little things. Hang out, God. You're only good for small things anyway. I can handle this. But I need Him to be big. I need Him to be a God who can place things in the universe and make a beautiful Oort cloud to just all of a sudden every 48 years throw a comet back into our solar system. Verse 19, evening came and then morning the fourth day. Another day cycled. God works during the day and He rests at night. Just pretty much what He wants us to do. It was a fourth day, but was it really 4 days? Was it really? Again, this is the crux of who we are. The world's saying that it wasn't 4 days. It was at least 1 billion or 2 years. You know, we get to, if they believe that life came at 3.5 billion years, which would have been day 6, then the first 5 days were around 10 billion years. Do you believe that? Okay, you can't tell me that I believe the 13.7 and yet I still believe God made the world and what He said He did. It's not possible. 6 days is not 10 billion years, which is 4,000 billion days. It's either 6 or it's not. And again, I may have a simple belief system. You may say, that guy's a simpleton up there. I'm fine with it. Call me whatever you want. I'm happy with who I am. I don't care. But when it comes down to it, you need to have that same simple faith. Did God do this? Another little proof before we move on and finish our day. You know there's not enough sediment in the ocean. Do you understand that? Now, if you are believing 13.7 billion years, I need you to deal with these issues. Because I didn't come up with the 13.7 billion number. You did. Therefore, you're the one defending it, not me. I can throw all the wrenches I want in this thing and keep having all the fun I want because I didn't come up with the number. I came up with 6 days, and I'll prove it all day long through God's Word. It's the only thing I care about. Here it is. You start laughing at me with 6 days, well, I'll read Genesis to you. Laugh all you want. Have fun with it. I don't care. I didn't come up with a 13.7. You have more faith because of these problems I'm throwing out at you than I have. My simple faith is content with 6 days. You've got more problem with 13.7 billion years than I do with 6 days. So you wrestle with it, not me. But you know there's not enough sediment in the ocean. Each year there's billions of tons, about 20 billions of tons of dirt and stuff in the atmosphere that falls in the ocean. We should have hundreds of miles worth of sediment in the ocean if after 13.7 billion years we finally calculated it. We should really have no more mountains out there. The earth, the wind should have literally done them down to nothing by now. Okay? But we only have 1,300 feet of sediment. On average, around the world, averaging the highs and the lows, only 1,300 feet Not even a mile's worth of sediment in the ocean. And through their own calculations, we know how much generally is lost and how much they gain every year. So if we know how much is gained every year, we should be able to retrace that back and find out when this thing started. Simple enough. They don't like to wrestle with that because it's not talking about space and the beauty of all the world. Okay? We know after net gain, we gain about 19 billion tons a year. Again, this makes total sense, this 1,300 feet, if we had a cataclysmic Noah-type event. If Noah is true, which is in Genesis, I kind of believe it too. If it was true, then at that point all the water runoff would have given us 1,000 feet or so worth of sediment in the ocean, along with the time before that and the time we've got after this. It all makes kind of sense if we look at Noah. But with reference to billions of years, we should be all literally trying to wade our way through hundreds of miles higher than we are today. There will be no mountains. Pretty much a flat earth, all the dirts. Our oceans are about that deep. Okay? Understand, you have to defend it. I don't. I didn't come up with the number. I'm defending my God. This is my crusade. So this morning, are you any closer? I'll give us one more week on young earth. Next week I'll get 4 more. I could go for 100 years on these and not even try. They just tend to ignore them. I'll give another week on this, then we'll start dealing with Darwin and where he may have gone off track. But we've spoken of comets, an ocean dirt. We've talked about a dim sun, problems with astronomical calculations. How if our calculation doesn't lead us to where we want it to be, we'll remove the parts of it we don't like, which is what they do. What's it going to take for you at least to say, and again, I can't maybe get you to the point where you'll admit 6 days, but what can I get you to at least say, there may be problems with this. There might be a few issues with this number, and that's all I need to get you to. Because here's the issue. I've had several people come in, they're just all upset. It's got to be, it's got to be, it's got to be. And I went home confused. Why? I am defending my God. This is my crusade. I'm willing to do anything I can to defend my God. I will go to the end of the earth to prove that He is true. I will do that. But you're just a guy sitting in a pew. Why do you care about this? Or you're a lady that 13 points. Why do you even care? Why are you so invested? It's not like you've spent your life getting PhD after PhD to prove your truth. You're just a guy or a lady who hears this and you're working. What it made me understand, though, if this isn't true, they have to understand there may be a God out there. And that's the end product. If science does not answer my problem of my creation and just where I came from, there has to be a God. And if there's a God, I've got to somehow resolve my life with Him. That's a huge problem. So I understand now why you're fighting me so much on it. Because this is the crux of who we are. Either you believe the world or you believe God. You can't be in the middle, so just stop doing that. Find your side. But at this point, understand there's enough out there to help prove a great God. I'm not beating them up. You come into my office, I'll be as nice as I can be. Just a happy guy. But I'm not having to defend it. You come in with your proof, you're the one defending it because you're on their side. I'm just going to throw this stuff back at you. Prove it. Deal with this. Answer this problem for me. So it's not going to be a fun argument. Just not. Unless you can resolve every one of these in a logical, mathematical fashion. So this morning, where are you?